What began as a routine performance at Blue Horizon Oceanic Park, a spectacle families paid good money to enjoy, quickly turned into a nightmare. Neptune, the park's star orca, suddenly turned on his trainer Maris Ellington, dragging her underwater with terrifying force. Families, many with young children, watched in horror as the show descended into chaos, leaving a once magical experience stained with blood and tragedy. Blue Horizon Oceanic Park, nestled in San Diego, California, stood as a premier marine attraction, renowned for offering more than just its famous orca performances. Visitors were captivated by its cutting-edge aquariums, interactive dolphin experiences, and a vibrant coral reef exhibit. However, the park's true centerpiece was Neptune, a massive 20-foot-long, 10,000-pound male orca whose mesmerizing shows drew thousands of spectators weekly. As the park's biggest star and financial cornerstone, Neptune performed 6 electrifying shows each week, anchoring the park's success and solidifying its reputation as a must-visit destination. But behind the scenes, not everything was as seamless as it appeared. Trainers had reported increasingly erratic behavior from Neptune, who was known to slap his tail against the tank walls and refuse commands. Despite the warnings, Blue Horizon management insisted the show continue, citing the orca's massive contribution to the park's revenue. Maris Ellington, a 27-year-old marine biologist, had worked tirelessly to achieve her position as Neptune's primary handler. Growing up along Oregon's rugged coastline, she developed a deep love for marine life. After earning her degree, Maris joined Blue Horizon, where her care and dedication quickly earned her respect among her colleagues. She took pride in her bond with Neptune, often dismissing concerns about his behavior, convinced she could manage him. However, not everyone shared her optimism. A senior trainer had stepped forward months earlier, expressing serious concerns about Neptune's increasing aggression and isolation. This trainer requested that Neptune be retired or at least removed from performances. Management denied the request, and the trainer, unwilling to participate in what they saw as unsafe conditions, quit in protest. The trainer's warnings would later become a key part of the fallout from the tragedy. By the time of the afternoon performance, Maris had already completed one show earlier that day. The earlier performance had gone smoothly, and the amphitheater was once again filling with excited families and children eager to see Neptune's powerful leaps and synchronized routines. Despite Neptune's erratic behavior in recent months, Maris seemed confident, telling colleagues she felt he was in a good mood today. Trainers reviewed the cues and safety protocols one last time, though a lingering unease hung in the air. As the music swelled and the announcer welcomed the crowd, the show began. Neptune glided into the tank with his characteristic grace, earning cheers from the audience of approximately 500 people. The performance started flawlessly, with Neptune completing his initial routines under Maris's guidance. The crowd roared with approval as he performed a high breach, soaking the front rows with a massive splash. For a moment, it seemed like Neptune was back to his usual self. The finale was the highlight of the show, a synchronized swim between Maris and Neptune, a routine meant to display their bond and the orca's agility. As Maris entered the water, Neptune circled her, his immense black and white body cutting through the clear water. Maris signaled for him to perform a breach beside her, and for a moment it seemed like he would comply. But suddenly Neptune veered off course. Without warning, he turned and lunged at Maris, his powerful jaws clamping around her midsection. The force of the attack sent her head briefly above the water, and she heard the horrified screams of the audience before Neptune yanked her back under. Trainers on the platform immediately sprang into action, deploying distraction techniques they hoped would calm the orca. Brightly colored buoys and ropes were tossed into the tank, followed by a bucket of fish. Two trainers activated long poles designed to nudge Neptune away, but his thrashing made it impossible to intervene without risking further harm. As Neptune slammed Maris against the tank walls, her limp body broke the surface again, only to be dragged back under moments later. The audience watched in horror, some shielding their children from the gruesome scene, others frozen in disbelief. Neptune finally released her after over a minute of thrashing, and her lifeless body floated to the surface. Rescue divers entered the tank within seconds and pulled her to the deck, where medics worked frantically to revive her. The injuries were catastrophic: multiple fractured ribs, a punctured lung, and severe blunt force trauma to her chest and abdomen. Despite their efforts, Maris was pronounced dead at the scene. The aftermath was chaotic. Guests were evacuated from the park as emergency personnel arrived, and the amphitheater was cordoned off. Within hours, Blue Horizon announced the suspension of all Orca shows, a decision that would later become permanent. The tragedy led to significant legal repercussions for Blue Horizon. Maris's parents, devastated by the loss of their only child, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the park, citing negligence in ignoring repeated warnings about Neptune's aggression and the dangers of isolating him. The lawsuit also highlighted inadequate safety measures and the management's decision to continue performances despite the known risks. The case never reached the courtroom. After extended negotiations, Blue Horizon's management agreed to a significant settlement with Maris's family. While the specific terms remained confidential, the agreement highlighted the park's acknowledgement of responsibility and its desire to protect its public image. As part of the settlement, Blue Horizon also committed to supporting marine conservation initiatives and funding independent research into the mental health of captive orcas, signaling a step toward addressing broader concerns. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the marine park industry, sparking intense debates about orca captivity. Blue Horizon permanently banned orca shows but kept its other attractions, including dolphin encounters, aquariums, and conservation-focused exhibits. However, the loss of its star attraction led to declining attendance and mounting financial struggles. Within a few years, the park filed for bankruptcy and closed its doors. Neptune was relocated to a marine sanctuary in British Columbia, where he could live in a more natural environment. For Maris's family, her loss remained a painful reminder of the risks in working with powerful wild animals. Orca accidents have captured global attention, often unfolding in high-profile marine parks across the United States, a country known for its glittering entertainment and world-famous shows. But tragedy strikes beyond America's borders too. In Tenerife, a chilling orca incident changed everything for Claudia Volhart, a 29-year-old marine biologist, in the most devastating way imaginable. Loro Park, perched along the rugged coastline of Puerto de la Cruz in Tenerife, is a world-renowned sanctuary for some of nature's most awe-inspiring creatures. Spanning 135,000 square meters of lush greenery and vibrant habitats, it welcomes millions of visitors each year, drawn to its extraordinary collection of wildlife. What began as a haven for parrots had over the years blossomed into something far greater, an experience home to dolphins, penguins, and the commanding presence of orcas in its famed Orca Ocean exhibit. The early 2000s marked a turning point for the park, as it ventured into marine life, transforming it into a magnet for thrill seekers and animal lovers alike. At the heart of its appeal were the orca shows, mesmerizing displays of strength, intelligence, and sheer beauty. Audiences marveled as these marine giants leapt into the air, their powerful tails sending cascades of water into the cheering crowds. Yet behind the sparkling waters of the Orca Ocean, a quieter, more complex reality simmered beneath the surface. Tekoa, a 6-year-old male orca weighing over 1,500 kilograms, was one of the stars of the show. His size and power were captivating, but for those who worked closely with him, Tekoa's story was more complicated. Trainers like Claudia had spent years forging a bond with him, learning to read his subtle cues, each flick of a tail or tilt of his massive head revealing hints of his mood. But orcas are wild creatures, their instincts and emotions often inscrutable. While Tekoa had displayed moments of aggression before, they were fleeting, never quite enough to sound the alarm. Until now. What no one could have predicted was how quickly things could change. Beneath the polished surface of the performance, there was an unspoken truth. Even the most skilled trainers could only guess at the storm brewing in Tekoa's mind. And sometimes the waters of Orca Ocean, no matter how crystal clear, could conceal the darkest of depths. Tekoa's early life was marked by disruption. Just months after his birth, he was separated from his mother, Taima, due to her growing aggression, a behavior that had been seen with her previous calves. This aggression was believed to stem from a traumatic experience in her past, where she witnessed her mother, Gudrun, attempt to drown her disabled calf. After the separation, Tekoa was raised by Kalina, a more experienced female orca, and often paired with his half-brother Tuar. Their bond became one of the few constants in Tekoa's turbulent life. In 2004, Tekoa and Tuar were transferred to SeaWorld San Antonio, where they joined a new group of orcas. His time at SeaWorld and later at Laurel Park only intensified the challenges he faced, as he often endured aggression from his peers, leaving visible marks from countless confrontations. Despite these challenges, Tekoa grew into a powerful and unpredictable animal, shaped by a complex past that likely influenced the aggression he would later direct toward his trainers. Claudia Volhart, a 29-year-old marine biologist from Weinheim, Germany, was one of Tekoa's devoted trainers. For her, working with orcas had always been a thrilling and natural experience. Europe's only female orca trainer, Claudia had spent years at Laurel Park, building deep bonds with creatures that most people would only ever glimpse from a distance. A former model turned marine biologist, her shift from the fashion world to the depths of the Orca Ocean had always felt like fate. Through unwavering dedication, she had earned her place at the park, and in the water, she felt an almost mystical connection with Tekoa. But today, as she prepared for another session, an unusual tension hung in the air. It was just another training session, or so it seemed. Claudia stood at the edge of the pool, awaiting Tekoa's signal. His enormous form cut through the water, his dorsal fin slicing through the surface. He approached her calmly as if to reassure her that nothing was amiss. The session was simple. Tekoa was supposed to nudge Claudia's feet with his snout as they swam together, a typical exercise that highlighted the synchronicity between trainer and orca. Claudia reached out, feeling the cold, smooth surface of the water beneath her. Her movements were fluid, practiced. Tekoa's powerful body surged forward, but something was off. His usual grace was replaced with an unsettling force. She didn't have time to react. In an instant, Tekoa's snout collided with her chest, knocking the air from her lungs. The impact was sudden and Claudia's body slammed against the water with a force that reverberated through her bones. Before she could take another breath, Tekoa surged forward again, and the full weight of his body struck her once more, sending her spiraling beneath the water. Her arms flailed as she tried to stabilize herself, but the water was now a blur of cold, unforgiving depths. Then came the sensation of being pulled, not with gentle guidance, but with the raw, unrelenting strength of an animal that could easily overpower her. Tekoa's massive form dragged her downward, his teeth grazing her arm as he pulled her into the abyss of the pool's deepest point. 40 feet below the surface. A moment of weightlessness, then the pressure of the water, the sheer depth pushing against her chest, constricting her lungs. Claudia's vision blurred, the world around her fading as the sound of rushing water drowned out everything else. Tekoa's teeth clamped down on her arm, sharp and firm, the feeling like nothing she had ever encountered before. Her mind raced, and yet she couldn't summon the strength to break free. She kicked desperately, but there was no escaping his grip. Seconds stretched into what felt like an eternity. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the force pulling her down released. Tekoa resurfaced, his teeth still clutching her arm, and his powerful muscles propelled them both back to the surface. The air was cold against her face as she gasped for breath, struggling to stay conscious. The world around her came into focus, but the pain in her arm and chest was overwhelming. She tried to scream, but all that emerged was a strangled gasp. Her colleagues who had been standing by the poolside saw the danger unfolding. Without a moment's hesitation, they rushed to the edge, pulling her from the water and away from the grasp of the orca. Claudia's body was limp, her chest heaving as they hauled her to safety. She could barely comprehend what had just happened. The attack, that's what it had been, an attack, had happened so quickly, so unexpectedly, that even she had trouble accepting it. The trainers worked in a blur of action, and soon Claudia was rushed to the hospital. Miraculously, she survived the attack, but her injuries were severe: a broken elbow, a bruised lung, and deep internal trauma. As doctors worked to stabilize her, it became clear that the physical wounds were only part of the ordeal. The mental toll would linger long after the bruises faded. Back at Loro Park, the reality of the situation began to set in. Tekoa had always been a powerful animal, but no one had anticipated that he would lash out with such violence. His previous behaviors had been seen as quirks, not threats, but now the trainers knew the risks more intimately. The park's management decided that water-based training with Tekoa would be suspended indefinitely. The decision, though made in haste, was a painful acknowledgement of the risks inherent in working with orcas. For Claudia, recovery was a slow process, marked by the enduring scars of the attack. The park itself faced irreversible changes. Trainers no longer entered the water with Tekoa, and the once thrilling shows took on a somber tone. Questions about the ethics of captivity grew louder, as Tekoa's actions became a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of even the most trained wild animals, challenging the illusion of control over creatures of such immense power. Claudia's story may have shocked the world, but the real victims are the orcas themselves, forced into a life of captivity they never chose. While trainers willingly step into this world, the orcas are confined, their natural instincts suppressed. Our next story focuses on Candu, an orca whose tragic story reveals the devastating consequences of keeping these majestic creatures in captivity. Candu had been captured from her home in the wild waters off Iceland in 1977 when she was just a calf. Her capture, like that of many other orcas, was a traumatic ordeal. Orcas are known for their strong familial bonds, and the process of separating young orcas from their pods was cruel and violent. A team of experts located Candu's pod through air surveillance, and boats were sent out to surround the orcas, slowly guiding them into a smaller area. Nets were used to separate the young orca from the rest of her pod, and she was captured, transported in a net on a boat, and sent to a new life in captivity. The name Candu was chosen by her captors, acknowledging the cultural importance of orcas to indigenous communities in the Salish region. Candu was the first taken to Marine World Africa USA in California before being transferred to Six Flags Over Georgia and then Ontario Place Marine in Toronto. During this time, orcas were frequently moved between parks as part of a business arrangement. Eventually, she went to SeaWorld San Diego, where she would become a star. To the public, Candu's performances were the pinnacle of orca behavior, showcasing their intelligence, strength, and beauty. But beneath the surface, her life in captivity was marked by immense struggles. Captive orcas, especially those like Candu, often displayed erratic behaviors, a direct result of confinement in artificial enclosures that fell far short of the vast ocean they were meant to inhabit. Candu's bond with her trainers was undeniable. She was quick to learn the tricks, her body agile and graceful as she performed stunning flips, jumps, and synchronized movements with the other orcas. However, this bond, though crucial for her training, masked a growing unrest within her. The tight spaces, the lack of freedom, and the loss of family had begun to take their toll. Candu's distress became particularly evident after the birth of her first calf in 1986. The calf, named Winston, was stillborn, a loss that weighed heavily on the orca. Though she continued to perform, she was visibly disturbed and her behavior became more unpredictable. A year later, Candu gave birth to another calf, a female named Orchid. The bond between mother and daughter was immediate, but so too was the growing tension with the other orcas, particularly Corky. Candu's protective instincts toward Orchid were sharp and she became more territorial. By the time of the August 21st performance, Candu's aggression had reached a boiling point. The show was meant to feature Candu and Corky in a synchronized performance, but as the crowd looked on, Candu's behavior grew erratic. Candu, agitated by Corky's closeness to Orchid, began to exhibit signs of dominance. In the wild, orcas established their place in the pod through complex social interactions. But here, the confines of captivity had pushed Candu's natural instincts to the edge. The performance, meant to showcase the orca's beauty, turned into a disturbing display of aggression. Candu attempted to assert her dominance over Corky through a behavior known as raking, a tactic used by orcas in the wild to establish authority. It was a violent act, scratching at Corky with her teeth in an attempt to overpower her. But Candu miscalculated. Corky was larger, heavier, and more experienced. Candu lunged and tragically missed her target, instead hitting the concrete wall of the pool with tremendous force. The sound of impact echoed through the arena, and the audience fell silent. Candu's upper jaw was fractured and an artery was severed. Blood began to spurt from her blowhole, a horrifying sight for the spectators. In the panic that followed, SeaWorld staff immediately rushed to remove the orcas from the stage. The audience was ushered out of the stadium and Candu was moved to a back pool, accompanied by her calf Orchid. Candu's injuries proved to be fatal. Despite the immediate response, the blood loss was immense, and after 45 minutes of struggle, she succumbed to her wounds. In her final moments, Candu remained by Orchid's side, her maternal bond unbroken. Even as her strength faded, she stayed close to her daughter as if offering her comfort and protection one last time. Her life was cut tragically short in the very place that had once been her stage, leaving behind a poignant legacy of love and loss. The death of Candu was a pivotal moment in the history of SeaWorld and animal entertainment. It was a tragedy that raised questions that would go unanswered for years. Was Candu's death simply a result of a tragic accident, or was it an inevitable consequence of captivity? In the aftermath, it was revealed that Candu had exhibited aggressive behavior on several occasions prior to the incident. She had snapped at trainers and displayed hostility toward other orcas, behaviors that are not typical for orcas in the wild. On March 4, 1987, Candu was filmed slamming into a trainer, dragging him to the bottom of the pool, an incident that highlighted the growing issues with her behavior. In the years following Candu's death, SeaWorld continued its orca performances despite growing public scrutiny. The park maintained that their orcas were well cared for, with teams of veterinarians and trainers working to ensure their health. Candu's tragic story is just one of many, highlighting the physical and emotional toll captivity takes on orcas. Our channel's Orca series uncovers countless incidents, serving as a powerful reminder of why these majestic creatures don't belong in tanks. Shamu the orca is another heartbreaking example. Not only did Shamu attack a trainer, but her life ended in the most horrific way. A grim testament to the cruelty of captivity that will leave you speechless. It was a day like any other in 1971 when SeaWorld's latest star, Shamu, a 9-year-old orca, performed her tricks before an eager crowd. The audience marveled at the sheer power and grace of the killer whale as she swam in synchronized routines, delighting families and children. For years, the name Shamu had been a symbol of joy and wonder, a living testament to the marvels of the ocean. But on that fateful day, everything changed. Shamu's life had been one of captivity and confusion since her violent capture from the waters of Puget Sound in 1965. She had been torn from her mother by Ted Griffin, a man known for his ruthless orca hunts. The traumatic capture left Shamu with scars that would never heal. Her mother, desperate to protect her, had been harpooned and left bleeding, sinking like a stone into the water. Shamu was left behind helpless as Griffin claimed her for his collection. After her capture, Shamu was sold to SeaWorld, where she was thrust into a world far from the open waters she once roamed. The marine park, a new attraction in San Diego, promised to showcase the beauty of the ocean, but it was a paradise only for the humans. For Shamu, it was an unending nightmare of confinement. The tank she was housed in was too small for her 1,700-pound frame, 20 feet by 30 feet, a mere fraction of the space she needed. For Shamu, the vast expanse of the ocean was replaced by cold concrete walls and glass. The natural world she had once known was gone. In SeaWorld, Shamu's days were filled with forced performances. She was trained to jump, spin, and interact with her trainers in ways that went against every instinct her body had left. Despite her obedience, the mental and physical toll of captivity began to wear on her. The park, oblivious to the damage it was inflicting, continued to use Shamu as a living spectacle, a symbol of entertainment and profit. The crowds cheered, but Shamu's spirit quietly broke under the strain of captivity. By 1971, SeaWorld had grown into a bustling empire, expanding with new parks in Florida and Texas. The demand for more orcas was high, and the company continued to capture and confine wild orcas. But beneath the success of the shows, a darker truth began to emerge. Shamu's life was not one of joy, but of immense suffering, and the attack that would unfold that year was a consequence of the years of abuse she had endured. On April 19, 1971, SeaWorld Public Relations Director Gail McLaughlin and employee Kent Burgess devised a stunt they believed would show just how safe and thrilling the orca shows were. They asked Anna Eckes, a SeaWorld secretary and trained scuba diver, if she would be interested in riding Shamu as part of a promotional event. Anna, eager to be close to the famous orca, agreed to participate. Anna entered the water with Shamu, following the cues given by her by the trainers. At first, everything seemed fine. Shamu swam calmly toward her, cooperative as always. Anna climbed onto her back and raised her hand in the air, smiling at the crowd. But the trust between Shamu and her trainers did not extend to strangers. For Shamu, who had suffered years of mental strain and trauma, the sudden presence of an unfamiliar person was too much. Without warning, Shamu hurled Anna off her back and into the water. Chaos erupted. Anna, stunned and disoriented, struggled to react as Shamu's powerful jaws clamped down on her leg. The audience's screams were drowned out by the horrifying sound of teeth sinking into flesh. Shamu dragged Anna beneath the surface, her body thrashing violently through the water. Blood began to stain the pool as Anna's leg was held tightly in the orca's mouth. The trainers, frantic, dove into the water in a desperate attempt to stop the attack. One trainer swam towards Shamu's mouth, forcing open her jaw with all his strength. After what felt like an eternity, Shamu released Anna, who was pulled from the water, her leg battered and bleeding. The crowd fell into stunned silence, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Anna was rushed to the hospital where doctors worked to close the deep gash in her leg. She survived the attack but was left with lasting physical and emotional scars. She filed a lawsuit against SeaWorld citing negligence, fraud, and the inherent dangers of working with wild animals. Anna was awarded $17,500 in damages, but no amount of money could undo the trauma she had experienced. Shamu's life after the attack only worsened. Her performing days were over, but the isolation and confinement she endured continued to take a toll. Without the stimulation of her daily shows, Shamu was left to circle endlessly in her tiny tank. The constant mental and physical stress of captivity began to degrade her health. By the end of 1971, Shamu contracted a severe uterine infection that could not be treated. She died at just 9 years old, a tragic victim of a system that exploited her for profit. In the wild, orcas can live to be 80 years old. But Shamu's life was cut short by the cruelty she had endured in captivity. Her death was a blow to SeaWorld's image, but the park continued to profit from the spectacle of orca shows. A new orca, Helena, took Shamu's place and the shows went on. But Shamu's tragic life remained a dark reminder of the cost of human entertainment. For decades, SeaWorld continued to captivate audiences with orcas, but the price paid by the animals was always hidden beneath the surface. Thank you for joining us as we uncovered the unpredictable and terrifying power of orcas, an unsettling reminder of the danger lurking beneath their majestic surface. In our next story, what was meant to be a routine orca show turned into one of the most shocking attacks ever seen. Trainer Emily Cadeau faced an unimaginable nightmare when her trusted orca Naira turned on her. Curious about what happened next? Click to watch the full story.